Welcome to the show, Make It Plain, the Eric, Key, and Cameron Show. On today's show, we will discuss mental health and wellness, and we've got our resident expert here, Key Ford, that will help us navigate this. This should be a great discussion. Stay with us. This podcast is dedicated to addressing various topics from a biblical perspective, coupled with practical solutions for daily application. In essence, we want to take the Bible that is relevant for all that we need in this life and in the one to come, 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 3, and we just want to simply make it plain as Jehovah God had placed upon the prophet Habakkuk. If you'd like to reach out to us and submit questions or comments regarding the show content, we love to address those and even use your questions or comments to drive show content, which we love to do. We don't, again, as we've stated before, we don't try to reinvent the wheel. We just simply want to take what you guys ask us and comments you make, and we just use them for show content. But if you would like to email us, and we would certainly appreciate if you did that, our email address is makeitplain22@gmail.com. Make it plain, HAB22, as in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2, @gmail.com. In this episode, we're going to discuss a topic that is very much needed in our society, in our families, in our churches, in our own lives. And we're starting to see the prevalence of it. And that's mental health and wellness. And as a public educator, I have the very distinct privilege of dealing with teenagers who are experiencing so many different emotional levels in their lives because they're experiencing things brand new, like having a girlfriend or a boyfriend, some semi-serious relationship. They're experiencing puberty, and it's happening in a time where we are the most peer pressure. Right. And it's happening in a time where we are the most technologically advanced that we've ever been. Mm-hmm. And so these kids who are still developing their frontal lobes, who are dealing with these emotional roller coasters and this release of chemicals in their brain, oxytocin and serotonin and all of those kind of things, and you're having these releases, and then you couple that with having an influx of information all the time. I remember when I was a kid, man, when I was a teenager, like I was riding my bike halfway across Chattanooga. I didn't know what was happening in Ukraine. I didn't know what was happening in foreign countries. I didn't see all of, I didn't know. I wasn't inundated with all of this information. So I was happy.
Hey, look here.
I was po. I was so po I couldn't afford the OR. I wasn't poor. See, Key had enough money to be poor.
No, I was po too.
See, I had the PO.
Hey, I just know you better go outside and play.
Get out. Matter of fact, my mama locked the door.
Right.
And we couldn't come in. Right. And you literally had to drink out of the water hose, man. Like we drank out of water hose, man.
You ever think about how cold that water was?
Man, the water was good.
Man. I don't know if it was just for being outside all day.
It tasted like hose, but it was good. It tasted like hose, but it was good. And it didn't kill us.
Yeah.
We lived.
Right.
And I was riding my bike across Chattanooga. I didn't know, man. You were just free. We were untethered from all of, and I do not envy our young people today, like with having these cell phones, these supercomputers basically in their pockets. I don't envy them, man. I don't envy them. But we've got Key here, and Key, we want to talk about, I think if time permits, we want to talk about three aspects of mental health and wellness. Number one, anxiety, how that impacts our mental health and wellness. Mm-hmm. Number two, depression. I don't know that we have time to talk about grief, but we'll just dive in, when and where we can. So Key, bring us out the gate, man. So Key, kind of before we do this, like Cameron is full-time gospel preacher. That's what he does full-time. I am an assistant principal at a high school. I'm also a gospel preacher. By the way, I don't clock out of being a gospel preacher. I am considered bivocational. I'm a tent maker. I'm like Paul, I make tents for my money. in addition to preaching the gospel. But Key, so Key, tell us about, like, before we jump in, like, tell us why you are our resident expert.
So I am finishing up my LPC, which is licensed professional counselor. Man, I love doing this type of work. I have worked in the mental health field. I worked with children or adults in mental health for almost 10 years now. In my practice, I hope to be able to continue working with Christians and continue to working with those that are in the community, because I do believe it's actually a good outreach tool. Absolutely. Because everybody seems to have a struggle. Everybody seems to be going through certain things. And so the things I wanted to highlight today are things that I feel that impacts the church the most, because I know when we were in Branson, my guy, Matt Jones, love Matt Jones.
MJ.
Yeah, man, that's the original MJ.
The original.
I love Matt. Matt asked me, would I come and sit in one of his groups? And so he always has the young adults. And so I sat in the center of everybody, and we talked about just life and the woes of life and how we can handle certain things. I do believe that when it comes to mental health, it is important that we prioritize it, because it can affect our faith.
Absolutely.
Our mood follows our actions. Whatever mood we're going to be in, our actions are going to show behind it. And so when it comes to the things that we're going to discuss today, these three things I feel are very prevalent that cause us to shy away from God or shy away from each other when we experience these things. And I don't want to just be all doom and gloom. And of course we won't. We're going to give some Bible, and we're going to give some of the facts of these things. But I like to discuss them because many people struggle. And I will say this: whatever information you hear on here, none of us are your doctors, or so we're just having a conversation.
Disclaimer.
Yes, this is a big disclaimer. So don't go and diagnose yourself and say, man, you know what that preacher said. don't do that.
Guys on Make It Plain told me I had.
No, don't do that.
No, we are not. Let us set this disclaimer very quickly. Like, I am not a licensed professional counselor. Neither is Cameron. Key is working on it, but this is a episode. This is not an actual clinical appointment that you made with Key Ford and have received a diagnosis. We are talking about general things that we actually can see and things we can glean from the Bible to couple with what we know is going on in our societies and our communities dealing with mental health.
Yes. Because you think about it from the standpoint of when we talk about Christianity, we don't think about this idealized view of Christianity where people have so much faith,
right,
that they don't deal with real life problems.
Right.
We don't think about Christianity like that, because we know as to people, as the world, life is lifing.
Right. Yeah.
And people are going through real pains and struggles and fears and things of that nature. And so, like you said, Key, those things affect people's faith. And so by the time we interact with them from the standpoint of teaching them scripture, teaching them God's will, because they have been so negatively impacted by those negative ideas and emotions, stuff like that, it's going to be very hard for them to even accept that what God has said about something that is totally isolated from what they're dealing with, that they can't even begin to start walking with God.
Well, and when you talk about, and that's a great point. And the Key, you said, how'd you phrase it, Key? Our mood
follows actions.
So our actions follow our mood. So our action follow mood. So I would say it this way: how you think is how you act.
Yes.
And so when I have conversations with students, I always help them. I always try to get them to think differently, because I oversee our alternative education, our alternative program, and our alternative placement.
So is that still dealing with the behavioral students?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm dealing with students who for whatever reason, they cannot operate in a general setting. And so one thing I have, little counseling sessions with my students, and I try to get them to see that the way you think is how you're going to act, and the way you act is how you're going to be treated. Like, how you think is how you act, and how you act is how you treat it.
Amen.
So if you think like an animal, you're going to act like an animal, and then you're going to be treated like an animal.
That kind of coincides with what we were saying earlier episode about volition, free will.
Right.
Because we do have the capacity to think and act. And
I think the Bible is, when you think about why does the Bible Why does the word of God, especially in the New Testament,
Mm-hmm.
why does the word of God always drill down to the heart?
Right.
Why did Jesus talk about it's not what goes into the mouth of the man that defiles
Mm-hmm.
him, but what comes out, Matthew 15?
Right.
Why did Paul say, renew your mind
Right.
that you may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect
Because
will of
the
God?
heart, the biblical heart,
Right.
in the New Testament is the seat of intelligence.
It is.
The seat of cognition, feelings and thoughts and all of those things.
Then I think we may have talked about the Bible heart,
Right.
but it's
We
your
did.
intellect,
Mm-hmm.
your conscience, your will, your emotions. It's the seat of man.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the Bible doesn't address man on a superficial level.
Right.
And actually we do that a lot.
Yeah.
We address people on a superficial level. When if you change a person's thinking, you change their actions. When you change their actions, you change the way they're perceived and treated.
Right.
Like you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you change his mind, you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
We're really talking about in that proverb,
Absolutely.
we're talking about changing how a person thinks. Because if a person thinks, oh, I'm just going to sit here and people are just going to give me stuff and give me stuff and give me stuff, well, you're always going to be behind the 8 ball. But if you change their thinking and let them know, no, you can provide for yourself, well, then you feed them for a lifetime.
Absolutely.
So this idea of changing our mind is certainly, when we talk about mental health and wellness, it impacts every other aspect of our lives.
And let me just say, and what we can say, which is clearly a difference in a distinction. Today, you have men and women like Key, LPC, psychiatrists, psychologists.
Right. And real quick, the church needs y'all, by the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
But when Jesus walked on the earth,
Mm-hmm.
John 2:24 and 25, Jesus did not commit himself to men because he knew all men. He actually could see and know what you were thinking.
Okay.
He could read hearts.
But even in that, John 11, he wept.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Even he experienced emotion.
Right.
When he was in the garden, he was, the Hebrew writer said, he feared. He feared when he was in the garden. He prayed 3 times, let this cup pass me, to the extent that his blood was like drops of, his sweat was like drops of blood. And an angel had to come and minister to him.
Absolutely.
Right. So even he experienced anxiety. Even he experienced fear. Now that didn't stop him from.
I believe we call it the human condition.
The human condition.
The human condition.
That's what we call it, the human condition. But go ahead, Keith. School us, man.
And I want you to think about this too, because you have anxiety or you struggle with depression, or if you may have some sort of mental diagnosis, bipolar, schizophrenia, OCD, oppositional defiant disorder for children, whatever the case may be, those things don't make you less of a Christian.
So what you're saying is, Key, if I come to your house and I straighten up every picture that's on your wall because that's my OCD, you mean I'm still faithful?
You can still.
You won't withdraw from me, will you?
I will not withdraw.
If I come to your house, man, I see a picture crooked, I'm gonna straighten it up.
Straighten it up.
Okay, that's my OCD, man. But don't you know everything that's hung in my house, I hung it with a leveler. If it's on my wall, I'll put a leveler up there.
You know what's crazy? This is related but off topic.
That's my OCD.
Man, my wife, her grandmother, man, like we first got married, they used to watch the show Monk.
Monk.
And I didn't see what's so important. I'm like, I don't want to watch it. Now my wife watch it, man. I'm sitting there watching it with her. Cause here's a man dealing with OCD.
Monk is,
but he getting the job done.
Getting it done.
He gets the job done, man. But it's important because one of the stigmas when you talk about mental health, people are scared to say they will go to therapy. Christians are scared to admit they go to therapy, or they feel less of a Christian because I have to go seek help. I had a brother.
I can see that.
And you know what? And I'm not trying to cut you off, but isn't that kind of like one of the stigmas we would say even in the African American community?
Sure.
Yeah.
And specifically black males,
for sure.
Yeah,
not wanting to talk to anybody or seek any type of advisory counsel, anything like that.
Yeah, because as a man, I'm supposed to already have all the answers already. I'm supposed to know the answers. That's what a brother literally said to me. He said, "Key, and I've been meeting with him a few times." He said, "I thought I felt bad that I needed another man to tell me about myself and what I need to do." I said, "You misunderstanding it. In therapy, I don't tell you what to do. I help you process." It's not me just laying out this is what you need to be a better person. That's not therapy.
Even the Bible talks about in the book of Proverbs, I believe it's Proverbs 11, in the multitude of counselors.
Yes.
There's safety.
Yes.
Like bro, we can get together,
right?
Discuss things from a private standpoint, not a sinful standpoint, right. Private standpoint to help uplift and encourage and better one another. This,
it should be all good. Yeah. But we have to bring the realization to the church as well that, people, that these struggles are real. Right. I'm gonna say it the funny way that I was always taught it. When I was growing up, there was no such thing as anxiety or depression. If you was anxious or you had depression, you go in there and you anxiety them dishes. You go in there and depress them dishes.
Or go to sleep.
It was not a matter of being able to deal with these things.
We used to say people got a crazy check.
Yeah, because exactly, and those were the things, and sometimes it even goes into the church. I heard a brother tell somebody that you're not depressed, you just want attention, or not depressed, you just want attention. That was very hurtful for that person to hear that when that person was struggling with the fact of lost their mother and just trying to find their way. So we do have to be sensitive about it. But then there's also the other side where we can't just throw it all and say, oh, I'm just my mental health condition, so I don't do anything.
Right.
So people will misuse it just like with anything else.
You can be so basically what you're saying, you can be on either end of the spectrum.
You can be on but
of extremism.
The thing is you got to hit the middle. Like you got to be able to control yourself, because I do have to be in control of my faculties. I am the one who's going to look out for the things of my health and my mental health. We treat our bodies a certain way. We should treat the things we put into our minds a certain way. That's why Eric brought up the fact about how kids today, they have these supercomputers, they have their phones, and what it's doing. The access to information at a rapid speed like we receive today, man, is not good for us.
It is harmful, especially for those who don't have the prefrontal cortex to process it all. Like they can't disseminate. Like, because not everything you see in social media or online is true. But when you don't have the mental faculty to disseminate what's true and false, everything is true.
Yep. It's got like the commercial years ago, kind of like when smartphones kind of started becoming a thing after 2009, 2010. It was a commercial. I think this guy was going on a blind date, and the guy said, well, "Where'd you meet her?" He said, "On the internet." He said, "You can believe anything on the internet."
Yeah, right.
And that's how people operate.
Yeah,
yes,
and they do.
If it's on a certain website or whatever, it's like, okay, it got to be true,
right?
And it must be valid.
And maybe you might want to question a post that your cousin who dropped out of school in 3rd grade, you might want to question the validity of it.
Yeah, you're right. Because in it you can find any and everything
that you want
online, and so it's one of those things, man, where we really have to be cognizant of our mental health as well as we are of our physical health, because again, it does affect my faith. If I'm so anxious to the point where I can't get anything done for God or myself spiritually, I need to watch myself. So.
And especially if you're talking about something that gets into the realm of being clinically a problem, because if you're talking about something lingering for months, weeks, I don't know, after months, obviously, man, this is a little bit more complicated, a little bit more complex than you just having a bad day or bad week.
Right.
It's something deeper, something that you may need to, try to get figured out.
Right.
So I pitched something to Eric, and I'm gonna let Eric is gonna drive the car, and we're gonna fill it in as we go.
We'll try, man. And you have, and by the way, for our viewing audience, if you would like to reach out to Key, and if you would like him to visit your congregations,
or come to your house and rearrange your pictures.
That'd be my job. I'll come to your house and put your pictures up for you. But if you would like to book Key and bring him in for a seminar for mental health for your congregation, shoot us an email. Key will get it, and he'll make contact with you. But I think this is something that's very needed in the church. And so, firstly, as we drive this car, and I say that as you guys see me scrolling on my iPad here, the reason I'm doing that is because Key has provided me with some curriculum that he uses, and is his curriculum, and so he uses to discuss in his, because I'm not the expert, so I'm using Key's information. So I'm driving, But trust me, it's his car and it's his keys. He just let me sit in the driver's seat for a day. So firstly, coming out of the gate, what is this? What is the cycle of anxiety?
So when you think about anxiety first off is the feeling of uneasiness, stress, worry, how all these things that sometimes get into your mind. I know one of the things that I always think about when it comes to anxiety, you see people fidget, you see people who are unsure about themselves. They start to sweat uncontrollably. Sometimes they begin to talk manic and get real fast in their pitch. When it comes to anxiety in the cycle, so if I think about it as a circle and as it goes together, you have anxiety, then you'll have the avoiding of the situation. And when you avoid it, you receive a short-term relief. And then you also have the long-term anxiety that grows. And what I mean by that is you have a situation that happens. And then if you avoid it and sweep it under the rug, guess what? Shoot, it's out of the way for the minute, but I'm still thinking about it.
You guys remember that viewer that contacted us? That was avoiding a situation and avoided us to ask us about it. And that's and as I'm thinking about that correspondence, I see the cycle.
Avoidance is not good. One thing most people don't know about me is I'm a very confrontational person. And when I say confrontational, I don't mean we're going to physically fight, but if there's a problem, I want to fix it. Mm-hmm. Even when we think about us in the Lord's church, if there's an issue I have with somebody, I should be willing to do what Matthew 18 says.
Right.
Go to that person and that person alone. But how many times do people have the mindset, I'm not going to say anything to them. It's easier for me to talk to Eric about Cameron than go to Cameron.
Right.
It shouldn't be that way.
Right.
But the longer we avoid things, it puts us in a situation of a falsehood. Like I avoid it, so it should be fine now. But then when I finally have to revisit it again, guess what? Oh, shoot, I'm faced with it again.
Right.
And if you look at the bottom of that long-term growth one, it says that if you do things and get that short temporary relief, it's not really relief. But the next time that same trigger comes up, it's going to be far worse for you. You're going to be more manic. You're going to be more hypervigilant.
I was going to say, it seems like it will be escalated at that point.
Right. It escalates because, again, I don't deal with it. That's why I'm a fixer. Like if my wife is the complete opposite. If I said, baby, what's wrong? She said nothing. That lets me know, okay, there's something wrong. She's not ready. She's not ready to talk about it right now. She needs a moment. If I have a problem, I'm ready to talk about it now. I often joke with the congregation I used to preach at, and I'll be like, if somebody says something about me, I'll pull up on you. Because I want to deal with it. My anxiety.
But he ain't confrontational though.
Yeah, but I'm not.
Oh, he said he confrontational. He said he was.
I'm confrontational.
He said not in the bad sense.
I'm not going to body
he's
slam.
Not necessarily bad, but he gonna pull up though.
He said he gonna pull up.
Yeah, I because I want to fix the problem if I can.
I know.
But then there are those sometimes where we find solace in anxiety and avoiding situations.
Right.
How many times have we worried about something to the point where we become stressed out?
It can make you sick.
That's what Matthew 6. What does he say?
Right.
Who can add a cubit to your stature by worrying?
Right.
You can't grow from worrying, but you surely can shrink. And we think about it. You brought up the brain. You brought up how we have oxytocin and serotonin. Our brains are not meant to be in dopamine all that time. And when you think about it, if I'm avoiding, if I'm having a situation and I'm in this fight or flight all day, my brain is not designed to stay in fight or flight for 24/7. It's not designed to be that way.
Nothing is.
You
can't teeter and totter between highs. Like it has to be some it has to be some leveling point.
Yeah, you have to have a balance.
Even with life. So as far as much as I know about mental health, you think about, and I know you talk about all the time, stressors.
Mm-hmm.
Like what are the things or circumstances that cause people to get to that point of anxiety?
I tell people to the triggering thoughts and things that come up sometimes. And one of my topics at PTP this year was 7 ways to deal with stress. One of the first things I always tell people you have to identify your triggers, put a name to your trigger. If it's finances, if it's my spouse, if it's my girlfriend, my boyfriend, if it's, some past trauma experience, those like name your stressors. So when I gave my 7 things of dealing with stress was make sure you have a steady prayer life first off. Don't self-diagnose yourself because there are so many people who self-diagnose themselves. I always make a joke and say the last time I self-diagnosed myself, it said I was pregnant. And so
dang.
I know it'd be off.
And don't have a girlfriend with a wife on the side.
Yeah, definitely don't do that.
But what did Peter say? Peter said, let none of you suffer as an evildoer.
Right.
Right. So sometimes our own choices. We have these stressors in our life that we just we won't deal with. My sermon
consequences.
My sermon this past Lord's Day was about the title was Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did is I went to Exodus 8, right? Because second plague,
right.
Frogs. Moses said, when you want these frogs to go away, man? He said tomorrow. Now frogs were hanging off the ceiling. They were in the ovens. They were in the kneading trough. They were in the bedrooms, in the beds, in the bathroom, in the garage, in the car. They were in the pantry. Man, these frogs were everywhere. I mean, you would think that Pharaoh would have said right now, I won't, but he chose to stay with his conflict when it was in his power to change it. Yeah. And that's what some people do. And my premise was you can choose your conflict.
Right.
And sometimes when you choose your conflict, it's going to be in opposition to God. And then you're going to experience problems in life when you chose one more night with these frogs. You chose to remain with the conflict. And so when you choose to remain with those triggers and you allow them to just continue to seethe,
you have to change. Nobody should be. I don't like being stressed. I don't like being jittery. I don't like being in a situation where I'm worried about what's going to happen. It is, but sometimes people again find solace there.
But don't you see too though, in that very thing though, there's a little bit of denial too.
It is,
because if something is in your life and it's problematic and it's causing you stress, anxiety, all these different things, it's having a physical effect on you. And like you said, you have the power to do something about it, but you keep pushing it off, pushing it away.
But if you look in the Bible though, if you look in the Bible, second Timothy 3:4, I think it is. Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of God, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. Sometimes they, like you said,
you hit it.
They love the conflict. They find solace in it. It gives their life meaning. You ever see people who just love drama? Mm-hmm. They love it. It gives their life meaning. They feel like I have purpose. If I can keep drama going, it makes me feel relevant.
I told, I was just gonna say, Layla and I was having this conversation. I said, man, it's crazy how in families, not families, but there are some family members, bro, just, they love to keep up turmoil and drama.
Love it.
And I'm totally the opposite. I love peace,
man,
quiet.
Yes.
Love to laugh.
I love what I'm saying? But it's I don't even know how people thrive and operate with all this.
It seemed like it would be exhausting.
Right.
I'm going to give you an example of a couple, of course, respecting HIPAA, so nobody will know who it is. I gave an example that they had so much turmoil going on in their life that's what kept the marriage going.
Wow. When
they got sober, they don't know who they are. And now he's super anxious because he's like, man, is she going to leave? She's super anxious. Is he going to leave? They have been rolling in anxiety and having such a chaotic time to when now things are good.
Normalcy is foreign to them.
Normal is not even, they've been married for 6 years. They've not had this is the normal part of the marriage in those 6 years now. And now they're trying to figure it out.
Misery doesn't love company. It loves other miserable company. And this is why, when you find that link, even though it's negative, people love attention, negative or positive. Mm-hmm. They just love it. And so this is why couples, sometimes married couples, when they build their marriages around their kids and then they find themselves empty nesters, they don't know each other anymore.
They don't know what to do.
It's not normal. It's a change.
Not knowing from a marital standpoint. So everything has a foundation.
Right.
And the first, what did it say, first 5 to 10 years, you building the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, you building the house.
Right.
man, like you said, Key, this couple, they in year 6, and this is the first time in their marriage that they are even seeing some sense of normalcy.
Right.
Man,
that's like year 1.
Right.
Like, you're like newlyweds again.
Newlyweds.
Right.
Like, you're trying to
right.
like my theme I always use. I would say you live the rock star lifestyle where you guys are partying, you're drinking, you're having
clubbing,
you're doing all that stuff, and now, hey, we got to raise this kid and we got to be with each other, and that is so anxiety producing to them that they had to come see me. They did not, they're trying to get through it. And I've worked with this couple for almost 2 years now. And we've made it to normal.
Right.
And, to say that too, and kind of piggyback everything together, talking about anxiety, there was a lot of trauma that goes on with people too. And they had some significant trauma. Any of us who deal with trauma in our lives, like real trauma, when I say real trauma, I mean, hey, if we look at what's happening in Tennessee, in East Tennessee right now, North Carolina, and even in Florida, those are some traumatic events that have happened that people will probably feel for a long time.
Absolutely. For sure.
Absolutely.
Trauma is
probably to it.
Yeah, trauma is a traumatic event is an event that it reshapes the dynamics of your life.
Yeah.
Many people, again, deal with trauma different ways. Some people do maladaptive ways or bad ways: smoke, drink, avoid, fight, or isolate. I have a very big saying when it comes to dealing with trauma and anxiety. It's okay for you to separate, but it's not okay for you to isolate. There's a difference between the two.
Right.
Jesus separated. Jesus needed the moment where he needed to pray and be with the Father and talk to the Father. Isolation, if I start to isolate, I start to push people away from me, and I start to put myself in a situation, and then I'm left with my own ruminating thoughts and my own intrusive thoughts. They really don't like me. Nobody's caring for me. The elders didn't check on me. The preacher didn't say this. And I'm just keeping it all in my head. And what does that do to my faith?
But by that same token, though, isn't that a form of avoidance?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Because I can see very easily, if you're isolating people, if you've had something happen to you or you're dealing with something right now, then isolation would be you just avoiding any and everything.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
Think about
I'm just thinking.
What does the Bible say? Like, what's the remedy for when we go through things? If we have anxiety or depression, how should we? What is the remedy? How should we be as the church? Paul said, "I want to rejoice with you when you rejoice. I want to weep with you when you weep." Mm-hmm. So we should have a
responsibility in that.
We have a responsibility.
And another thing that we see is mentioned repeatedly throughout Scripture, even from the standpoint of being the opposite of isolation, is drawing closer to God. Draw nearer to God. Draw closer to God.
You see all of the passages that the one to another, when you come together, one for another, one to another, one another. When you look at that phrase or any derivation of it, man, it saturates the New Testament. Right. Like, this thing is like what the poet John Donne say, that no man is an island to himself.
Right.
No man is an island to himself. God created us to be social beings and to need one another. When he looked and saw Adam and all of the animals had their mates, and he said, it is not good for man to be isolated or man to be alone. I mean, I'm just thinking, this is a great conversation. I was thinking about, and I'm sure, Key, you use this passage often, Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 and 7. Paul said, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, keep your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. But when you think about that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the word careful there is merimnao, if I'm not mistaken. And it comes from the word marizo. And that word means to be disunited in mind. And so if you think about this, when people are anxious, and man, this is real life stuff. When people are anxious and they're stressed and they're overwhelmed and they're not dealing with their conflict, the decisions that they're making are out of their mind. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying that absolutely. I'm not saying they're crazy, but I'm saying is they have stepped outside of the normalcy of their mental faculties, and they're making decisions.
That's literally a point I brought up in my last mental health seminar I did. When you're not in your right mind, you're not going to make good decisions. You're not going to make positive decisions. And so you think about it, if we are continuing to stay in anxiety that way, we're continuing to live there. Now, again, it's not saying anything about anybody who has to take medications or do anything like that.
Right.
If you take medications, you're still a Christian.
Oh, for sure.
But there have been some who have demonized it inside the church that if you're anxious, like I've heard people use Philippians 4 and verse 6 and say, well, if you're anxious, you must have weak faith. No, that can't be the case.
Okay. So real quick, do people say that about Philippians chapter 4? Do they even know anything about the congregation that Paul wrote to?
I don't.
As a matter of fact, if they went back to Philippians chapter 1, you know what Paul did not do that was prevalent in his other epistles? He didn't introduce himself as Paul, an apostle. I wonder why.
Because it was understood,
man. And why did this church? This was a good man. Philippians is the model church, man.
Yes, sir.
I always say about
the church at Philippi is the model church.
When you compare Corinth
and Philippi, they are polar opposite. As a matter of fact, Paul said, I robbed other churches. And when he wrote 2 Corinthians, he had already been to Macedonia, which is where Philippi was located. When he said he robbed other churches, who we think he was talking about?
Man,
Philippi. They love Paul. Paul loved them. Now, he told them how to deal with false teachers. He gave them encouragements, but Paul loved this church. He didn't rebuke this congregation. And so when he's saying, be careful for nothing, it's not because they had fallen into some state of depression.
No,
that is not what was happening. So that would be like, if we talk about context, if you stay within the context of the epistle, you would know that's not the case.
Exactly.
That Paul's not saying, y'all ain't got no faith. Y'all careful.
But I think again, it's the way we interpret things or use things in the scriptures. Because again, if we take the knowledge, and I may be wrong in conflating the two, we take the knowledge that we see about when it comes to alcohol. We say, hey, the studies show that you shouldn't consume this. This is the reason why we don't do this. But when we start talking about things like mental health, somebody say, oh, well, you just need Jesus.
Yeah.
Hey, it is true. You need Jesus. You need to pray. Right. But even in the sense of prayer, I need to put legs on my prayers. If I'm experiencing things like anxiety, prayer is your first alternative. That's your first thing you do.
Right.
But then you can't just sit there and say, well, I prayed, God is going to remove it.
Well, Timothy should have prayed that his stomach aching as often infirmities would just go away.
Right.
Yeah, Paul didn't tell him to do that. Paul told him to medicate.
And that's coming from somebody who had the power to heal people of their physical ailments.
Epaphroditus was sick to death.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting.
But we had mentioned this earlier before the recording about Mark 5.
Yeah.
The gentleman who, what I'm saying, who was sitting. The Bible says, when you read Mark 5, man, it's very interesting. He was sitting in the tombs, in the tombstones, the catacombs.
Right.
The Bible said he was sitting there crying.
Yes.
Cutting himself.
Right.
This dude was plucking the chains and fetters off of him.
Like strong.
Do you know how strong you got to be, man, to break chains?
Break chains.
Yeah, you got to be
crazy strength.
And so Jesus found a man, literally the Bible says, out of his mind.
Right.
Deranged.
Right.
But after the interaction with Jesus heals him. The Bible said he was sitting in his right mind.
Right.
So the point that what I'm saying at least is that people do experience moments and times where they are not thinking clearly, that they do have things and allow things to that to be a part of their life that will cause stress, anxiety,
right.
all of these things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, and just like you were making reference to earlier, Key, about how people need to identify their stressors. What did the prodigal son do?
Yeah, man.
He identified those stressors when he was out there, and he saw that he was, man. When I would have loved to just been a fly on the fence
to see
when he is in that pen and he is about to eat this food with these pigs. Like he about to eat the slop belly. He is about to do this. And he's thinking to himself, the Bible says he came to himself. You see that? He realized what his stressor was. Oh, I left security. I left my dad. I left the place where I had everything I ever needed to have. I went out here and I wasted up my inheritance with riotous living. Right. The Bible says, and so the idea is that just like Legion, when this man came to himself, when the prodigal son came to himself, he came back into his right thinking. He identified his stressors and he said, I'm gonna do something about this. But then what we have, unfortunately, often is people will identify their stressors and won't deal with them.
Right. That is one of, like, I hear so many people say, well, Key, I have ADHD, or Key, I have this. And I'm like, have you been to see somebody yet? No, but I know I have it. But you still, there's another step. If I was stabbed or shot, I'm not going to be like, hey, identify, I got a stab wound.
Everybody got a Band-Aid.
But I'm good. Just throw a Band-Aid on. I should be fine. No, I want to.
Please don't do what they do in the movies. Find you some buckshot powder or something. You'll pour this out. No,
we light your side on fire with a.
Right. No, we're gonna we're gonna get past that. I'm going to the doctor. Man, I'm going to get taken care of.
Man, the same. And here in my Bible. And I don't know when I did this. Y'all know how this goes, man. You mark your Bible up. You don't remember when you did it.
You just make sure it's there.
Know it's there. I just know it's there. But for some reason, at some point in my life, I thought it necessary to see how many times Jesus used the phrase "take no thought" in Matthew chapter 6, verse 25 through 34, which coincidentally is the same word that Paul used in Philippians chapter 4.
Right.
For the word "careful." The phrase "take no thought" is the exact same word that Paul used in Philippians 4 for careful. Be careful for nothing. It's the same phrase.
And we might add, from Jesus' standpoint in Matthew 6, it was preventative.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So he was gearing the Sermon on the Mount to, in Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Okay, he already knows everything. So what I'm telling you now about take no thought, I'm telling you this so that you won't have these problems, the anxiety. Because if you don't listen to what I say,
you're gonna worry. You're gonna be worried about it.
Do not create these stressors for yourself. Because inherent in the word, stressor is stress. And you notice this for our viewing audience. Verse 25, take no thought. Verse 27, taking thought. Mm-hmm. Verse 28, take no thought. Verse 31, take no thought. Verse 34, take therefore no thought. Like from 25 to 34, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times Jesus, no less than 5 times, says, don't create stressors for yourself. Right. But on the contrary, seek first
the kingdom of God.
Seek first. Now, again, I'm not saying, and just like you didn't say, and none of us have championed this idea that we're never going to have problems in life and that we're not going to have mental issues and that we're not going to find ourselves needing counseling and therapy and medication. Nobody's saying that, because I think that the Holy Spirit, for some reason, sought to let us know that Luke was a physician. Right? Why is that relevant to anything?
But think about it. Think about this too, though. So in all those instances that you just mentioned in Matthew chapter 6, so though everything he mentions is things that can be controlled.
Right.
Number one, if you listen to the words of Jesus, and number two, if you actually, as James says in James 1:22, be a doer of the word. But Matthew chapter 6 doesn't say anything about take no thought. What if I have a loved one that die?
Right.
Matthew 6 doesn't cover that.
No.
What if a child dies, a best friend dies? Because what we're saying,
John 11,
right? What we're saying is Christianity, the belief in Jesus, doesn't take away from the realness of everyday living.
Never has.
No.
And as a matter of fact, that's not what he. Interestingly, if you come away with that idea,
you haven't read
the gospel.
You did something wrong,
right?
You certainly couldn't have read John 16:33.
Mary and Martha were weeping for their dead brother.
Jesus told the disciples, these things have I spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In this world you shall have tribulation.
John 16:33.
I have overcome the world. So if you come away with the idea that simply because you're a Christian, who's the only other man that we have record of that walked on water beside Jesus?
Peter.
Why did he sink?
Took his eyes off Jesus.
Not only did he take his eyes off Jesus, But did Peter construct in his mind that there was a storm, or was there a real storm?
Storm.
Man, that storm was very real.
Absolutely.
He didn't make it up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't construct a storm.
Man,
it was there.
It was there.
Yeah, man, and he is standing with Jesus on water.
Yeah.
Now, if he is standing with Jesus on water, and he is in the very presence of God, the one who supersedes nature, but there was still a very real storm.
Absolutely.
Right there.
Yeah.
Now he looked at it, he focused on the storm, which is a different lesson. What I'm trying to bring out, that
storm was real.
Yeah.
No pun intended. What I'm trying to stress is that even though the master was standing there, the human condition, life was still right there.
Jesus even used
Matthew 7.
Right. That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
He even used that to show, to prove.
As he concludes the Sermon on the Mount. He brings that thing to a close.
The storms will come, the winds will come, the rains, the flood.
And it don't matter the foundation.
It don't matter the foundation. It rained on both.
Right.
Foundation don't matter. You're going to but still build on the rock. That when it does happen, because it's coming, when it does,
why would he use that as a teaching lesson?
Right.
A teachable moment.
Right.
If those things are not real and they don't impact our lives.
And to let these Jews who he has had to try to deprogram and reprogram for the coming of the kingdom, to wrap it all up and say, and even in the midst of it all, you're still going to have storms. I didn't come to erase those things.
As a side note to that,
I came to give you the faith to stand through them.
Luke, the physician that you mentioned.
Right.
Luke devoted a whole chapter, Acts 27.
He did.
While Paul was en route to Rome.
Yes.
Man, that was a storm.
It had a name.
The Euroclidon.
Yes.
And what's interesting, the storm was so severe, Paul said when all hope
was lost.
Man, that was a real storm, man.
Oh, very real.
And you think about that, and by the grace of God, they survived. But like you said, keep going back to the reality of life. Things can happen to people that will impact their thoughts.
It has to.
Absolutely.
Like nobody blames you, or at least I hope not, for being human.
No.
Yeah, hopefully.
Like, hopefully nobody is looking. Hopefully we are not, and God forbid that I have ever done this, and I pray that I haven't. If I have, I just ask whoever I may have inadvertently done it to forgive me. But hopefully I've never made light. Because I know we had a sister at Avondale when I was preaching at Avondale in Chattanooga. We had a sister that took her life.
Yeah,
and because she was dealing with a chemical imbalance in her brain. Right, she was a faithful Christian, and when she was on her medication, and I may have told this story before, but it's relevant to what we're talking about. When she was on her medication, you couldn't tell. I think she had bipolar and paranoid schizophrenia. I think, and her medication was like it was for some reason the doctors weren't able to regulate it as they should, and so it would cause her to be comatose, and she would fall into these comatose sleeps. And again, I may have told this story before. But she would fall into comatose sleep to the point to where she would sleep through worship. She would miss work, because the medication was so strong. So the doctors were always
trying to figure it out,
trying to measure and try to figure out what's good for her and her body and her size, and and so she got to the point where she's like, I can't function. She quit taking it. Well,
guess what?
Well, she killed herself. You know what I'm saying? So this is not. Like, we don't make light of these things, man. And hopefully we've never made light of somebody who's dealing with life.
Can I ask them to that?
Condition.
So a couple months ago, we were, how random topics come up in Bible class. Oh. And that was one that came up about suicide. So, and I remember I made a statement and a sister said, that's a good way of looking at it. But the point she was making was the Bible makes a clear distinction between a person not wanting to deal with the consequences of the action, like with Judas.
Right.
Luke makes it abundantly clear.
Right, sure.
That in Acts chapter 1, man, Judas transgressed.
Right.
But why? Because he made a bad decision, didn't want to live with the consequences.
Right.
What we're talking about, what you just mentioned, by way of example, there are some people who struggle with these, the medicine, these actual real clinically diagnosed disorders to the degree that they can't even function.
And that's like, think about that.
That's a totally different conversation.
And you think about that with depression and leading to suicide.
Absolutely.
You know, depression is one of those things where, man, and depression doesn't always look like how we think it looks. You know, most time people think, oh, depression is I'm laying around not doing anything. You can have the manic side to it where, man, you're overly busy. You're putting it into so many things, but still you have that imbalance. You're still not keeping yourself like you need to. And then when you finally have to sit still with your own thoughts, that's when those ruminating thoughts kick in. That's when the cognitive rehearsal starts. Am I really worth it? And that's where it becomes abundantly loud, and somebody can't get to a point where they unfortunately take their lives because, man, it got to be something better than this.
Well, you know, and with me, being in public education and being in administration and dealing with teenagers and how the school system has become all things to all people, man. We are in public education, man. We are counselors. We hire mental health counselors. We partner with counseling companies. We have crisis counselors on staff now. We have interventions. All of this money that public education has allotted for mental health and wellness is crazy, man. And back in our day, you think about it, we didn't have all this stuff, but we still had life. But I tell you what, man, research shows that these devices and this access to information, because remember, only bad news sells, right? That gets you your clicks. That gets you your comeback. If you're always telling people things that people are supposed to be doing, well, that's not news, and it doesn't make companies money. And so when you look at these devices and this influx of information that our kids are getting, number one, is overwhelmingly negative, right? It's overwhelmingly negative. It's not positive. They're not being inundated with good stories and good humanitarian stories and good feel-good stories. It's TikToks. It's social media it's bullying. It's the wars that are happening, the hurricanes, COVID, the marginalization of people, injustices, police killings, school shootings, like all of this. This is the information they receive, and brain research shows that it rewires the brain.
Yeah, school shootings.
It literally can rewire how you think.
And to the point that you just made, if you don't think that's true, like if you ever noticed, like the news feed, man, we were younger. News came on twice a day.
Yeah, 6,
7 o'clock in the morning before you went to school, about 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
Now news is on every hour, all day,
all the time.
And I noticed one day, man, I was in Memphis, man, get Memphis news. Everything's bad.
Yeah.
But I for like 2 or 3 days, I watched it. And then they finally had to put a segment to counter all that bad news with the good news of the day. To show 1 or 2 positive things going on in the community. I mean, there's no way 1 or 2 things is going to counter 30 to 45 minutes of a news cycle where there's stealing, killing, shootings, all of this homicide, all of this negative behavior. It's not going to be able to do it.
I wonder if we just did like a social experiment just within even our own families or our own churches, just to take a week, don't look at Fox, MSNBC, CNN, because you got the political turmoil on top of that. Key, I didn't even mention that,
man.
I didn't even mention that.
So the solution would be don't watch that.
Right.
So for a week, look at GBN.
Right. Yeah.
Look at Make It Plain podcast.
Yes. Buy your mug. But for real, like, so what if we just social experiment? I'm not saying every day, but get off your devices. Like, stay off the news and media. Stay off the negative television. Like just turn off your radio, or if you do, put a podcast on. Put GBN or House to House or spiritual, just whatever your favorite podcast is or whatever. Like, do that for a week and just remove yourself from all of the negative. And so I wonder what it would do for the psyche and for the mental state of people.
It's cognitive reframing, man. You gotta refrain from all of this.
Key is a professional. He put He put a word. He put a word to what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, cognitive reframing.
I done went all the way around the barn, and he said in 2 words: cognitive reframing.
But think about it. Isn't that what the proverb writer said in Proverbs 4:23? Keep thy heart with all diligence.
Keep, protect.
Right.
Yeah.
For out of it are the issues of life.
Issues of life. Right. Proverbs 23:7.
Right.
For as a man thinketh in his heart,
right. So is he.
So is he. For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he.
And that's why when it comes to things like anxiety, I'm to the point where I notice people. I can notice it now. I notice from nonverbal communication, or even if I'm in a meeting with somebody or talking to them, I can see the level of anxiety in some people. I literally had a meeting not too long ago where a man was in danger of losing his kid, and he had been doing right. Like the man's been doing right, no problems with him, but he was so anxious about the meeting. I could see him, his hands under the table. He's fidgeting. He's stimming. He's probably stimming because maybe he does have some dealing with autism, but he's also so anxious that he's trying to find a way to cope in that meeting. So when we had a break for a moment, I put my hand on his back and I was like, hey man, I want you to breathe with me for a minute. Had to take him to a position where he could just breathe. And he was like, man, how did you know I was stressed? And I was like, well, it's pretty easy to see it in this situation. I could see, like, he was normal tone, but man, his nonverbals were just screaming, I don't want to be here. I need help. And we sat there 60 seconds. We breathe. I said, man, how you feel now? Get up and walk, get you some water. He was able to finish off the meeting with no problem. He was like, man, I really thank you for just taking that moment.
Recognize.
Because sometimes, man, a person is, like you said, they're not in their right mind.
But that's good. And I think that kind of, in a nutshell, kind of encompasses everything we're saying. Like, as Christians, our brother's keeper, right, members of the church, recognizing these signs. Right. Now, obviously, Key is professional in it, and he can pick up on it, right then and there. But if you can't, don't negate.
Right.
Don't try to, make void the way somebody is, feeling or what they're experiencing. Mm-hmm. You try to be empathetic.
Because it's very real.
Absolutely.
It's very real to them.
And part of that being my brother's keeper, I should say this, working out my own salvation with fear and trembling it does mean that in some instance, I am my brother's keeper on certain things. Like, I do need to be us going to heaven is not directly dependent upon each other, but I do need to be concerned. Like, I can find myself in a bad position
Galatians
if I'm
6:1.
not there for my brothers.
Yeah. Galatians 6:1.
Bear ye one another burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ, Galatians 6:2. But then the one before that, if somebody is overtaken in the fault, ye who are spiritual, right, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness.
Well, I tell you, man, this is, I wish we could continue. This has been a great conversation. Keith, thank you so much, man. We might have to do a follow-up to this.
Yeah, we got to do the depression. We got to get to the depression and grief part.
That was good, man. Our time is spent. That was great conversation. Again, if you guys would like to have Key, just reach out to us. Our time is spent. We appreciate you being with us for this episode. If you'd like to contact us, make it plain, hab22@gmail.com. May God bless you and keep you as you seek to conform your will to his.